Fun stuff. Real fun stuff. Environmental concerns. Huh? Excuse me? Whenever we get done with it. Probably it'd be next week. Yes, Key West is a great place. All right. And when we say environmental concerns, we're not talking about global warming. We're talking about how does the environment affect your athletes. You have hyperthermia. Hyper is called a what? Hyper is in this word, prefix. And so a prefix is, yes, excessive. So we have excessive or elevated body temperature. We never, ever, 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 ever want to have someone have hyperthermia. Never. Okay? They'll die. There was about, hmm, about 10, 12 years ago, first day of football practice. All right? And then, first off, is they practice for about 3 hours. Okay? The second thing is that after practicing about 3 hours, um, they decided that they were going to run 16 100-yard sprints, one for each week of the season if you go to state. So it would be 16 weeks. So we're going to run 1,600 yards after we've worked out. One kid went to the hospital, and another kid went to the hospital. The first one that went to the hospital, he could play football for the rest of the year because he'd done enough damage. Right? The second one died. You die. If you get too hot, you die. You cook your organs. And there's not enough time to say, oh, well, I need somebody to donate a liver, or I need somebody to donate. You die. And so that's why we are very adamant about making sure that they always have water, that they have breaks, that we get out in the shade, etc. So heat stress, the absolutely most preventable problem you have in athletics, right? Body function, well, it only happens within homeostasis. Y'all ever hear that word in biology, homeostasis? What did it mean? Right, right. So if you had something that was an amoeba that was living in the water, right? If it was too acidic, it dies. If it was too alkaline, it dies. It has to have its homeostasis. And that happens with people too, as far as temperature, as far as hydration, etc. So, body will function only if the body temperature is within your normal range. All right. Maintenance of normal body temperature in a hot environment depends on your ability of the body to get rid of it or dissipate your heat. How do we normally get rid of heat? Yes, but in order to sweat, you got to have fluids, and then that is a entire project within itself. Because if it's too humid, it doesn't work. If you don't have enough fluids to cool off, it doesn't work. Was any of y'all a teacher pet? I mean, I don't think you were. And they had had any of you gone to school where there was a green chalkboard and they actually put chalk on it? Yeah, you remember that? I can't believe it, but so the teacher would write on it, and then you would erase it, and there'd be chalk left. What did you have to do? Huh? Yeah, get a sponge, wet it down, walk all the way, and the chalkboard would turn dark green. Then what would happen? How did it dry? What do you mean the air? Huh? What? Somebody said it. It evaporation. So it evaporates. That's the same concept of how you cool. You sweat so that the moisture on your skin will evaporate, and that causes you to cool. The evaporation process. How about this? Okay, anybody babysit? Yeah. One of the coolest things, as far as like if you get a baby that gets a fever, they'll tell them to put rubbing alcohol on them, right? And it cools them faster than water because it evaporates quicker. So that process is sped up. The evaporation process cools them down quicker. So evaporation. So we got to maintain our body temperature. So we have metabolic heat production. The body will, or normal bodily functions will result in the production of radiation and heat. So we're warm-blooded animals, all right? If you burn energy, which would be your calories, you get heat. That's why you shiver when you get real cold, all right? The body heat increases as a result of exercise, and the amount of increase depends upon the intensity and apparently the intensity of the exercise, probably the length of your exercise. All right, so if we go out and say we're going to go run 5 laps, does anybody expect that they're going to be sweating? Why do you expect it? It's not that hot. You guys are just complaining it was all cold. Oh, it's right now? Yeah, right now. Are you still going to sweat? You guys, I know you work soccer. You got soccer. It's cold night. They come off the soccer field. They're sweating. They're steaming. And that didn't come from the environment. That came from them working out. So your metabolic heat production comes from working out. The higher your metabolic rate, the higher your temperature will be. So those people who have a high metabolic rate, they might not be 98.6. They might be 98.9. That might be their normal temperature because they burn their fuel. All right, conductive. All right, went and ate dinner last night, right? People just left the restaurant, and you had a waiting line, and so I went and sat down within 60 seconds of that person getting up. My seat was warm. It was warm. Exactly. How did it get warm? Because that person's, yes, exactly. Conductive heat exchange. Physical contact with other objects, and it will result in a heat loss or gain. Okay? Now, if I touch something cooler, what happens to the cooler object? It gets warmer. What happens to me? If I touch something hotter, conductive heat exchange. Contact with AstroTurf or even just out here on the grass or dirt, as it may be, that is hotter than the athlete is a form of conductive heat exchange. You got to be careful about that. You don't want to like hose it down, right? You hose it down, and you got mud. You're not even going to have a field. You hose it down on AstroTurf or athletic turf. Now you increase your humidity level there. So now you can't sweat, or your sweat doesn't evaporate. So you got to be careful how you do it. Convective heat exchange. Who likes cookies? I do. Do you like cookies as much as me, though? Because I've also got a nickname. Cookie Monster. Yes. And during Halloween, I always dress up as the Cookie Monster, and I'd take all the cookies. Yes. So, but when I go home, and I'll do this again today, I will go and get some cookie dough, and I'll put it on a pan, and I'll put it in my oven. And what kind of oven is going to make the best cookies? Convection. A convection oven. You can look this up. You can buy a regular oven, or you can buy a convection oven. Convection oven, huh? Sort of. So a convection oven has little fans in it. So not only does it heat it up, it takes, what's it heating? Well, what's heating the cookies? The air gets hot, right? And so this takes the air and makes the air move to keep the air all at a singular temperature. Otherwise, you might have hot spots. You know, you get those ovens that have a bad thermostat, and you burn the bottom of your cookies, but the top of your cookie doesn't end up to be as good. But you get a convection oven, and it circulates the air. So much better for cookies and bread. All right? Well, how does that work with heat exchange? Well, you can get body heat either lost or gained depending upon the temperature of the circulating medium. And that medium can be what? Air. It can be air. So if I'm outside and it's 110 degrees outside, my normal body temperature is 98.6. What's happening to me? I'm getting hotter. If I'm outside and it's 40 degrees outside and I'm 98.6, exactly. Does it have to be air? Whoa, really? What? It could be. If I'm at the natatorium and the temperature of the pool is 80 degrees, to me that's still too cold. I need 95, 96 or higher. Yeah. Then your circulating medium could actually cause you to get colder. If you put somebody in a whirlpool that's more than 98.6 all the way up to their head, what happens to them? They get hotter. And that's not a good thing because then they can pass out and drown. But we'll get into that. So, if you are blessed enough to where you can get a cool breeze on an August day, you can reduce your body heat while a hot day can increase your heat. Radiant. Not so much that it's radiant, but if I say someone looked radiant today, right? How do they look? Huh? Blue? No. Bright, happy, like the sun. Radiant heat from sunshine causes an increase in body temperature. All right? The effects of the radiation are much greater in the sun than in the shade. So this summer, go take a drive through Texas. You're going to find something standing out underneath the trees. And what is that? Mainly cows. Yes, but animals will. And old people. Well, young people too. I will. We look for shade. Because even though if I take the temperature, the thermometer, if I take a thermometer and put it in the shade, it could be 10 degrees cooler than if I put it out in the sun. And it's not going but 2 feet. Okay? Who? You'll see. All right? So the effects of radiation are much greater in the sunshine than what it is in the shade. And to radiate heat from increased metabolism, the body dilates superficial arterial and venous vessels channeling blood to the skin. All right. We all know somebody that's really fair complected, right? And when they get hot, what happens? Or pink? Yes. That's because the blood is getting channeled out to the outside of the skin to try and find some way to get cooled off. There's this one guy, Tom Lukin, he played football for the Eagles, and during the winter, when the football season was over, these pro football players would go play basketball at school. And they would get paid $100 each. The school would give them $1,000. They'd have 10 ball players and one person who set it up. And this one guy, Lukin, he was a heavy-set fella, and he'd start running up and down that basketball court, and he turned pink. And they called him. They said, "Oh man, here he is. He's got Lukin pink going on again." So now here's our evaporative heat loss. All right, you got sweat glands in the skin. It allows water to come up to the surface, and just like with the chalkboard, it evaporates. Hopefully, when it does, it's going to take quite a bit of heat with it. When the temperature and radiant heat of the environment become higher than the body temperature, loss of body heat becomes highly dependent on the process of sweat evaporation. You've got to have it to where. But where, we live where? Texas, and we're on the Gulf Coast, and we have a great big body of water, right? And that brings in with it humidity. And if we get too much humidity, you don't evaporate. So You can sweat, or a person can sweat for about 1 quart. How many quarts are in a gallon? 4 quarts in a gallon. Very good. So you can lose about a half a gallon. You can sweat about a quart an hour for 2 hours. All right? How much does water weigh? How much does it weigh? A gallon. How about in a gallon of water? How much would how about 8 pounds? 8 pounds a gallon of water. 8 pounds. 8 pounds. So you're losing 4 pounds of water. All right? So the sweating, not the seating, but the sweating doesn't cool. It's the evaporation that cools you. So the air's got to be free of water in order to evaporate the sweat. If we get up, and what's that when we have water in the air? That's called, when we have water in the air, we call that humidity. But I'm loving your enthusiasm. All right? So if you're at 65% and then 75% humidity, you're going to be really impaired on your evaporative heat loss. And that is when heat will increase when the humidity is high. Not a good thing. So it's really important that we let the coaches know, hey, we've got to chill out. What happened here? All right. So you need to monitor your heat index. Heat plus humidity plus sunshine equals warning. Warning, Will Robinson. All right. So you get a sling psychrometer. We don't have one of these old ones. We've got one that's electronic. All right. And what it does is it measures the heat and the humidity and gives you the idea of where you are on heat index. So here we go. This is our weather station. All right. We had some outdoor activities, and those outdoor activity coaches would say that that's not on the phone. It would go off and say it's 108 degrees. But the closest weather station is over at Hooks Airport. Okay, so as a crow flies, it's probably 10, 13 miles. Okay, so he would say, that's over there. That's not here. So it can't be 108 here. And so what we did is we saved money and we bought this little $1,000 gizmo. $1,000. That little thing is $1,000. And the reason it is because it's very accurate. All right, so we can turn this on, and when we turn it on, it's going to measure by all these little instruments. Here's the wind. All right, leave it open. Now, if wind is helping, we can shut it down and say, okay, not enough wind to keep watching, but the wind does make a difference. So we put on a special tripod. When we turn this on, it's going to tell us, and that's what a does. It uses and one of them look over it, hanging around. But the thing about it, though, why? I mean, you want one of these. So anyway, this will measure all those things. Now, when our heat is 208 degrees, we're done. When it and then they get a 5-minute break, and it goes on down from there. You need to have a heat illness or a heat prevention program when you are working with kids in athletics. Okay? Let's see here. Oh, we got so much time. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right. Heat, syncope, All right, you get heat cramp, heat, and then the dreaded one, heat stroke. You. And you might get the heat stroke without having cramps. All right, you might get to heat exhaustion without cramps. You might get to them without heat syncope or having a heat rash. But these are the 5 illnesses that you're going to have to know. It's also known, heat rash is also known as prickly heat. You get red rash accompanied with a sensation of tingling. You find this on athletes that are out there in the heat that are wearing pads. You've got thigh pads on, right? So times the size of that phone. And down here, you put that thigh pad here, right? I'm still sweating underneath there. Where's that sweat going to go? It stays there. Irritates the skin, clogs up the pores. Yeah, yeah. Not a fun thing. Irritating. Usually occurs to the skin, is continually wet with unevaporated sweat, and you need to towel the body off to help prevent that. So we remember those ice towels. Those ice towels are not only cooling it off with evaporation, but you're also cleaning out those sweat pores and getting rid of that dirty sweat. So keep going. There we go. Here's the picture. Found that and put it on there just for y'all to see. Last year's group, they didn't get to see it. So, all right. Who's ever been to Six Flags, Disney, Fiesta, Texas, one of those fun things? And you find the overweight person who's been standing in line way too long, and they turn pale and they faint. The heat syncope, also known as heat collapse, associated with rapid fatigue during overexposure to heat. All right, remember we just talked about Mr. Lucan and him getting Lucan pink because his blood goes to the outside. Well, these people, they're caused by standing in the heat for prolonged periods of time, not being accustomed to exercising or the heat. All right, and so what happens is that the blood, instead of running to their head, is saying, "Whoa, I'm too hot. Please, please, I need to get cooled down." So it pulls in their extremities. Um, no, we're still going. It would ruin this great Emmy Award-winning video. All right. So when the blood pools in the extremities, there's not enough to get to their head, so they faint. Lay them down, start replacing fluids, get those people cooled off. Heat cramp. Oh, wow. Has anybody ever had heat cramps? You have. They are not that painful, are they? Horrible? Hey, how about this? They're in training camp up there with my father's little team up there. This dude got done with football practice. He went to the chow hall, eating dinner, and he started to cramp. He cramped from right here all the way to his toes, from his neck to his toes. Come to find out, he had lost 14 pounds that day. What? Sweating and not putting enough back in. Exactly. Heat cramps are painful muscle cramps that occur most commonly in the calf and the abdomen. You also get them in your hamstrings. The only time my mother ever heard me say a cuss word. I got done with football practice, came home, ate dinner, laying down on the floor watching some TV, and a cramp grabbed me in the hamstring, and I went cussing. My mother's like, comes running in, she goes, who's fighting in here? And it wasn't me and the brothers fighting, it was just me not prepared. So, no. So, related to exercise or an excessive water loss and several electrolytes or ions, which are essential elements in muscle contraction. So when the muscle contracts, here comes one of these little electrolytes that comes down. Now what happens is it will stay contracted unless the other one comes in and breaks the bond. And so when those sodiums and calciums and potassium are out of sync from sweating, that's why dogs come up and they lick you when you're sweaty because it tastes like salt. You know it tastes like salt. And you get a salt ring around your baseball cap if you wear it out in the summer all summer. Get a salt ring around your shirt if you were out working hard that day. Yeah. So how do you got to prevent it? And to prevent it means you've got to think way ahead. And thinking way ahead means that you got to have adequate replacement of sodium, chloride, potassium, magnesium, calcium, and water, not just before you play, but even while you play. All right? That's why when these boys come here and we fight the bumblebees and put that stuff up there. Okay? Heat exhaustion. I'm exhausted. Now here's the thing. We've got that little concussion law. We'll talk about this when the concussion portion of your stuff that you got to learn next year. But what the law says is you've got to refer anybody who has any symptoms of a concussion. Wow, some of these symptoms are pretty dizziness, right? Hyperventilation, rapid pulse, pale skin, profuse sweating, mildly elevated temperature, look in their face. Heat exhaustion or concussion. That's why you got to get smart. You got to put all your pieces together and say, okay, here's the puzzle. What's the puzzle piece trying to tell me? Caused by inadequate fluids replacement. And those are, they'll fall out. All right? You got to put them in a cool environment and replace the water. The thing that Dark Horse has done in the past, they tell these kids every day out there at football practice, if they're not feeling good, let one know. Who then let us know. Who then we take them up here and we let them and we let them. But get them cooled off. Let them take their time cooling off. All right? Because you don't want to put them in the shower. And then there's heat stroke. Life-threatening emergency. Your temperature is 106. Actually got to where you don't have any more fluid to sweat.